So I came across an article from Nintendo Life earlier today, and I found it just through seeing a couple of tweets about the reactions to the article and the headline and the quotes and the information within. And it was pretty interesting, and reactions were strong because of what was maybe being insinuated by the interview within, and that definitely had me taking note of what was going on. And it had to do with Nintendo, the new president Furukawa, and some quotes that he put out there about the idea of if Nintendo might actually stop making home consoles or dedicated video game hardware in the future. And now I know that initially, right off the bat, that sounds terrible, it sounds terrifying, it sounds like something that nobody really wants, and oh my gosh, what is happening with Nintendo? Why are they talking about not making video game consoles and video game hardware? Are they trying to set us up for this weird, horrible, horrific, dystopian future where Nintendo isn't making video game consoles anymore? And, you know, like I said, obviously most of us don't want that. I'm a big Nintendo fan. Most of you guys are big Nintendo fans, and I think the industry thrives because Nintendo is a part of it. And so the very idea was certainly interesting, and there are a couple of quotes within the article, again, a Nintendo Life article that I'm going to link below to you guys, that I did want to read and discuss the idea of what he's saying, the possibility of Nintendo doing or not doing this, and if it's anything that we should maybe all start worrying about or freaking out over, because like I said, the implication's pretty huge. So apparently Furukawa was speaking with Nikkei, and this is what he had to say on this topic. We're in the entertainment industry. There isn't much we can do about that risk. To us, the guiding principle by which we operate is offering customers all around the world innovative and unique ways to play games. We aren't really fixated on our consoles. At the moment, we're offering the uniquely developed Nintendo Switch and its software, and that's what we're basing how we deliver the Nintendo experience on. That being said, technology changes. We'll continue to think flexibly about how to deliver that experience as time goes on. In the long term, perhaps our focus as a business could shift away from home consoles. Flexibility is just as important as ingenuity. I'd like to increase the amount of games on smartphones so that we have a continuous stream of revenue. So those are some of the key quotes that were featured in this Nintendo Life article from this interview. And so, like I said, a lot of people have been gleaning a lot of information from these quotes. And to be fair, it does kind of seem like he's saying a lot, discussing Nintendo's current business, their business model, their current hardware, which is the Switch, how that factors into the market of them presenting the Nintendo experience, as he called it. And then, of course, discussing how things can change, technology can change, the industry can certainly change. I mean, those of us who have been around for a while have seen the video game industry and the entire landscape change many times over. Oh my goodness, as somebody who is 38 years old, I first played a video game on an Atari 2600 before the NES was even released into the world. And so I've seen so much change throughout the years and decades. And you know, right now we're in like the 8th, 9th iteration essentially of this current video game console industry. And so he's basically trying to allude to the fact that, hey, that's what happens. And Nintendo has been fortunate enough to not only have saved and resurrected the video game industry when they came out with the NES, but also be one of the most adaptive and innovative companies in the industry so that they've stayed relevant. In fact, they've been on top of relevancy several times in the past throughout all of these changes and all of these decades. And essentially, he's basically, to me, what it sounds like is he's trying to lay the groundwork for that philosophy and business model to continue and to state, hey, anything could happen in the future and we want to always be ready to change when necessary. And I have to say, man, to keep it real with you guys, I see what he's saying, and I think that honestly, that's the smart move. I mean, how could one possibly fault him or any company for saying something like that, especially in an ever-changing industry like the video game industry? It only makes sense. It's good business. It's smart business. It's just trying to be ahead of the curve when something might come out of nowhere and completely change everything that you're doing and everything that your consumers are looking for. So at the end of the day, when we really start to kind of break down and dissect his words, do I really think he's saying that Nintendo's plan is concretely long-term to stop making video game hardware and consoles like these quotes or even the Nintendo Life article within states? And honestly, no, you guys. I mean, let's be real. That's not what he's saying. Yes, he's trying to say Nintendo wants to be prepared to change when necessary, but I don't think that that's really what Nintendo is planning on doing right now. We have to remember a few key things. One, the mobile stuff, the mobile market. He references them there. We all know that they've been finally working on mobile products the last couple of years, and they've actually seen really good success. So I think probably one of the main things that prompted him to state this, as well as one of the main driving business factors behind the scenes within Nintendo is the fact that the mobile market is huge. It's a market worth attempting to make money on, and Nintendo has already seen great success monetarily in making a handful of mobile experiences. So I think that what's happening is we might be seeing a small to large polar shift within the overall production of Nintendo products and Nintendo experiences within Nintendo as a company, to state, hey, we've got our dedicated home console stuff, the things that we've been doing since the 1980s, and we also have this new arm of the company and this new production of software for the mobile experiences and mobile devices. And obviously, with how huge the mobile market is and with how successful they've been with just a couple of offerings so far, this probably started as a pretty small entity, the mobile entity within Nintendo. But obviously, let's be real and honest with ourselves, guys. It's growing. It has to be growing. They'd be smart to be growing it. We're going to continue to see more stuff coming out of that. And, you know, again, to be honest and transparent with you guys, you know me, I don't care diddly squat crap about mobile games and mobile experiences. I never do or desire to turn on my cell phone and play a game on it. I'm using it for texting and Twitter and YouTube and stuff, and just communicating with people. Like, that's all I use it for. I don't need to play games on my mobile phone. It's not interesting to me. I prefer real, what I call real game experiences on consoles and on PCs. To me, that's real gaming that I care about. So I'm not trying to say mobile gaming is great and everyone should get their heads out of the sand and realize how great it is and why this is smart. To me, it's smart because, hey, man, where there's revenue, there's a Nintendo. Where there's revenue, there's a company and there's a business model to sustain. And I'm completely fine with Nintendo continuing to focus on the mobile market, provided that they don't start to sacrifice or compromise what they're doing with the traditional home console stuff, with the Nintendo Switch markets and the future consoles that they might be doing down the road. If they can keep this stuff intact, I don't really care how much they do on the mobile side. And obviously, the philosophy has been changing, and so that's where some of this comes from. Now, the other huge factor that we have to consider here is the Nintendo Switch itself. This thing alone means we have no reason to think that Nintendo is going to be stepping away from home consoles or dedicated video game devices anytime soon. The thing has been way too successful so far. It's continuing to sell well. It's continuing to sell a lot of software, and Nintendo being a company that has built its company and its philosophy and model around making their own revenue and profit from their own games, it means when Nintendo is selling not only hardware successfully, but also their first-party software, they are making boatloads of money. They are Scrooge McDucking through all of this revenue and profit that goes directly to them. They're not splitting the majority of their software sales on the Switch or the 3DS or whatever with companies like EA and Activision and Ubisoft and whatnot. Obviously, games from those companies that sell on the Switch or other, yes, they're splitting the profit with those companies on those games. But again, Nintendo's main market is driven by their own products. And yes, I know I constantly say they do need third-party support to help make their hardware successful, and that's true. But when we look specifically on the profit-generating revenue, that part of the business, that's where their first-party stuff keeps them head and shoulders above everyone else in the company doing what they do. And so when Nintendo is as successful as they are currently with the Switch and the software that they're making and selling, first and third party if we're being real, as well as their previously successful generations like the Wii, the 64, Super Nintendo, and NES, like that shows that Nintendo, I can't possibly think, is looking at stepping away from this market right now. Obviously, they've experienced some chinks in the armor, with the GameCube unfortunately not being a huge hit, which breaks my heart because it's one of my all-time favorite consoles. And then, of course, the Wii U, which I also love. But I mean, come on, that had to have scared them a little bit. And I think that the struggles with the Wii U and the chink in that Nintendo armor that the Wii U specifically probably exposed to them is where we get things like doing movie licenses and theme parks and mobile games. And so they realized we have enough of a great intellectual property with our franchises that we can make revenue outside of just making one home console hooked up to your TV and one handheld device like a Game Boy or a DS. They've realized that they can branch out and be successful. And we've even seen them realize this more by understanding they need to pull the brakes back on the whole YouTube thing and stop cracking down on that and allow us creators and influencers like myself and other people on YouTube and Twitch and whatnot to help sell their products just by enjoying them, showcasing them, and talking about them. And so when a company as successful as Nintendo has a product as successful as the Switch, there's no reason to think that they're going to just ixnay on that anytime soon and suddenly stop what they're doing and do a hard right turn into something else like completely mobile stuff or going third party for other companies or whatever else people might be worried that these quotes are talking about. It's just not going to happen. And I also firmly believe that Nintendo is a company that I think it's insane that I have to say that this is a rare thing, but I believe in rare form, Nintendo might be the only company that also truly just enjoys making this stuff. Like, I feel like they enjoy being a company that's focused on such a unique gaming experience and making unique gaming hardware. And I think that they enjoy, when you look at people like Miyamoto, and you look at what he and the philosophy of Nintendo developers, Aonuma is one of them as well, when you see them work on games, talk about working on games, delivering and previewing games, these guys and girls absolutely love what they do. And I know that most people for other companies, yes, they enjoy making video games, but it seems like the passion and the motivation and dedication is a little bit more uniquely positive and jovial for Nintendo as a company and for all of these people. So I just feel like the products they've made over the decades have showed us that they care too much about this to completely walk away. I think they would have to have 3 monumental monetary disasters like the Wii U in a row. They'd have to have three Wii U's in a row. I can't speak, apparently. In order for them to say, okay, we can't do this anymore. But just one failed console generation here and there, and one failed product here and there, you know, like a Virtual Boy level and a Wii U level, I feel like ain't gonna send Nintendo running to the hills anytime soon. They're gonna keep making dedicated video game stuff, and I think that he's really just trying to say, we're willing to grow our other aspects of revenue, like mobile games, and just keep that running alongside of the traditional home console stuff that we're used to doing. You know, and to be fair, I don't want to end on a downer note, but I will mention this one thing at the end of this video here in summary. I think it should be fair to note that I do think that, yes, if things did get that bad, that Nintendo would eventually be willing to say, maybe home consoles aren't for us. And obviously that's a little bit of the insinuation in these quotes. So, you know, hey, I think that really just goes back to that concept I just stated. They'd have to have 3 monumental Wii U level disasters in a row, something like that, to convince them to do that. And since I don't really think that Nintendo's ever going to fail that hard, that consistently ever, and I would think that most of you guys out there probably feel that same way, it just gives me more confidence that everything is going to be fine. Nintendo are fighters. How many times has Nintendo been doomed in the past? How many times has the chips been stacked against them? How many times has their own mistakes and boneheaded moves even hurt them, yet still they've been able to bounce back? And the reason is they're passionate, they're gifted and talented, and they're smart. And they know video games. They know this industry. They basically are the godfathers of the current video game industry that we're still in right now today. And so they're fighters, man. They ain't gonna give up anytime soon. So I don't think anyone needs to read these quotes in this interview and feel like, oh man, Nintendo's starting to scare me. They're worried they can't be successful, and they're gonna leave the video game market soon, and they're just gonna start making stupid mobile games, and that's it. Like, I just don't see that possible. So anyone who's worried can just pump the brakes and just relax, take a deep breath, do some yoga, light some incense, whatever you got to do to just chill out and realize that probably everything's going to be fine. I have no worries about Nintendo right now, and I don't think you should either. So that's what I think. Obviously, I want to hear you guys talk about these quotes, this interview, my thoughts, everything I shared and talked about today. What do you think is going on? Are these quotes everything that I said, or do you think that maybe they are more serious and maybe there is something more to it, and maybe he is planning on taking Nintendo in a direction away from traditional video games and traditional video game hardware? Whatever you feel, talk about it below. That's it for me today. Thanks, of course, as always, for tuning in, guys. This is Rob of Ro2R, and I'll catch you next time on another video.